Geez, where are we?
We'd be on item 6B, the ambulance service area.
Okay. Okay, so...
So this is basically the reappointment of, this will be a multi-step issue here. All you're doing today is basically appointing people to the advisory service advisory committee. And there are certain positions that are held by these committee members. And you'll be seeing this item come up later. After these committee members are appointed, they will reconvene, they'll have a meeting, and then they'll make a recommendation, and this is all tied into working with the Port Orford district, which will be assumed by Cal Atlantic.
You mean Port Orford Health District, or?
No, the ambulance service.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve those individuals?
No. So what we have here is we have certain positions. So we have on this committee, according to the bylaws, a hospital administrator should be picked, a doctor with ER experience should be picked, a RN, a fire department, EMT, and then 2 lay people. So we have basically a few more people, one more person than can be appointed. So if you'd pass these down, in your packet you have all the applications, and actually I think this will be one. Yeah, there's 2 applications that came in, and oh yeah, actually just go down to JJ or go down farther. So, JJ, did we get those additional applications to them that came in late? Okay, all right, so you've seen those. Those are for the last 2 positions.
Okay, it looks like we've got 3 people running for lay position.
Yep. So
2 for the EMT.
Yep.
Okay.
So if you look at your ballot, basically under speaking from the left, we have 3 people applying. You need to pick 2. EMT, you have 2 people applying, and you need to pick 1. Fire department, 2 people applying. You need to pick 1. RN, there's only 1. Doctor with ER experience, there's only 1. And hospital administrator, there's only 1.
Okay.
So in order, if you want to talk about the individuals, you have the packets, you have the applications. Otherwise, we could, proceed to, basically vote, hand them in to me. I will have them, kind of like the previous one, I'll have them verified by Corp Counsel, or since he's not here, probably JJ.
Okay, maybe I'm going to bring this issue up. Under EMT, pick 1.
Yep.
I know Dan Bratton is the owner of the ambulance service, so could there possibly be some conflict of interest?
We've asked counsel about that. He basically, because he's part of the group, he has to recuse himself from a vote that would basically assign the Port Orford to the new district, basically. So that would be the only thing that he'd have to recuse himself from.
Okay, I just want to make sure that
Yep.
if you were chosen, that...
Yep. We have reviewed that. We've discussed that with legal counsel. So that would be the only one thing he would have to recuse himself from.
Okay.
And the last 2 people that you saw on your applications were the doctor with ER experience and the hospital administrator. They came in. So those are, I think, would be.
Well, it looks like Richard Burton is here 3 different areas, so he could be on the board anyway.
Yes. Jim Watson has been from fire department. He's been a coordinator on that. He's been organizing the meetings. So at least that's what I've heard. I've not talked with any of these individuals. Court, we're looking at the ballot here, and so what we're discussing is voting on these individuals for this ASA committee.
So you want us to do the ballot, sign our name? And
So do the ballot, sign just like before, sign the ballot. So
Okay.
the first column there, Court, there's 3 people, you just need to pick 2, and then so on and so forth going down as I've instructed on the ballot. And if there's any questions, we can certainly revisit the packet or the applications that were there. So we have Beth, the 2 lay people. You have Beth Barker Hidalgo, George Fisher, and Richard Burton. Under EMT, you have Dan Bratton, you have Richard Burton. Under Fire Department, you have Jim Watson and Richard Burton. Under RN, you have Andy Stubbs. Under Doctor with ER experience, you have Michael Needens. And under Hospital Administration, you have Ginny Razzo. And those are all on the packet, online. And the 2 additionals that came in after we did the packet were put up as on the website also as for the public to see what they were.
Okay. Is this secret, or I guess it's not?
You
right?
just turn it back into me, and
Okay. Did you sign your ballot?
No.
You're supposed to sign your ballot.
Sorry, guys.
Legibly. You gotta sign your ballot. Okay, good enough.
highlight check. Okay. I'm just going to have JJ just double check this, just to
Okay.
make sure that it's not that complicated, but I'll come over to you, sir.
Oh, maybe we can have a drum roll or something while they're getting it together.
All right, I am back, and the issue we have is we have a tie for lay persons. So we have 2 votes for Beth, 2 votes for George, and 2 votes for Richard. So,
Flip a coin?
well, there's 3 people. I had not anticipated this. I apologize. I didn't come up with a scenario for this. Would anybody like to change their vote? I could hand these back, and somebody could change their vote if they wanted. We could ask.
We're gonna have to solve this, aren't we?
We're going to have to solve this.
Yeah.
We can't move on without this.
Okay.
Council Hall.
What are you doing?
We are doing the ASA.
Vote.
We're doing the ASA appointments, and I basically have a ballot for people that could sign on for the different appointments for the different positions. Everything is settled, with except for lay persons. We ended up with a 3-way tie of 2 votes each for 3 of the people: Beth, George, and Richard. And so we're open to suggestions on how to solve this. I've asked if anybody wants to change their vote, or we'd end up with some sort of just random. We can't flip a coin because there's 3 people.
Well, you got 2 openings then, right? Go with the
People-
first opening and select the people for the, vote on the first opening, and then you got the filled the first opening. This thing right here, I see it.
Yeah, you got it, okay.
Just, so basically, position 1, who are you going to vote for? And then position 2, who are you going to vote for? And I think you're done.
But that's what we just did.
How,
Well, we
no,
voted at the
no,
same
you
time.
didn't.
Yeah,
Oh, we voted all together, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so position 1, there was,
You have 3 candidates for position 1. Beth Barker Hidalgo, George Fisher, Richard Burton. So you just do a roll call vote on position 1.
okay?
Sounds good to me. Yeah, let me hand these back. That's you.
can we just do a voice vote? Is that?
Yeah,
That's
roll
what
call
we're gonna
voice.
do.
Bart, and that's Sue. That way you got something to look at.
Okay, so for position 1, one of the 3 people, what about you, Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just struggling a little bit here. So I'm gonna go with Beth Barker Hidalgo.
And that's who I went with also, Beth Barker. So she's the winner for position 1. Okay, position 2 would be out of George Fisher and Richard Burton. Why don't we just say who we voted for and, or would vote for?
Yeah, Richard Burton.
Fisher.
And Richard Burton. Well, that was solved quickly.
You're welcome.
Thank you for Council
Yeah.
Hall for coming with that great suggestion.
The chair the invoice for that.
Sure.
Where's the money
You wanna-
coming from?
The other positions, do you want to announce, or did you?
Yeah, so, I apologize, yeah. So the other positions, let's see, where am I going here? So the other positions for EMT are Dan Bratton, Fire Department pick, Jim Watson, RN pick, Andy Stubbs, Doctor with ER, Michael Needens, and Hospital Administrator Ginny Razzo.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is to appoint members to Coos Curry Housing Authority. And one of the applicants dropped out, and so I think there's just one applicant now.
Yep, just Karen Gilmartin is an applicant. Jerry Lynn Thompson had removed her application, and so this got off consent just to the fact that the write-up was for 2 people. So I would just make a motion, or looking for a motion to appoint Karen Gilmartin to the Coos Curry Housing Authority.
So do I have that motion?
Could you say her name again slowly? I'm sorry.
Karen Gilmartin.
Erin?
Karen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, that,
This is under the, you'll see it under,
no, I got it now.
Got it,
Because
got
I thought I heard Erin, and I'm glad for clarification.
Do I have a motion to
I'll
appoint her?
motion that we appoint the sole applicant for one of the positions, Karen Gilmartin.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Second, Madam Chair.
Any discussion? Call for the question. Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I
Oh, I do. Yeah.
don't.
Okay, we're moving on to the public hearing that we already heard the public part earlier. So this is on supplemental budgets. So Louise, I think you're on.
If I may, Chair.
Okay?
I would like to, on this topic, I've already given the memo to Administrator Schroeder. I have copies here for Louise. You copy that. And then I'd like to just read this short
Okay.
memo. This is your copy. And then you will have 1 and 2 more and 1 more, because John will get a copy from. Okay, this is a memo I'd like to read on. It's to Commission Chair Gold, is CC Administrator Schroeder, Council Huddle.
Thank you.
Accountant Kallstrom, Paulie Rogers and Company, Commissioner Boyce. Dated July 18th, 2018, today from myself. The subject, the general meeting of July 18th, 2018, agenda item 7. supplemental budgets for the 2017-18 fiscal year. Materials were submitted into the record during the special meeting June 27th, 2018, with numerous references from the Oregon Department of Revenue on this subject and other related topics. Those materials may be downloaded from the Curry County website, and I put the path there. A supplemental budget is effective through the end of the fiscal year. The source is the Basic Law Budget, or Budget Law 2018, page 122 from the Oregon Department of Revenue, Finance, Taxation, and Exemptions. Number 2, basically, a supplemental budget must be only for the current fiscal year. The source for that is the Budget Changes After Adoption, dated 3/11/2014, page number 1, from the Oregon Department of Revenue. Third point, the fiscal officer must pay close attention to each appropriation throughout the year and avoid overspending. Source is the Local Budgeting Manual, May 2012, page 57, Property Tax Division, Oregon Department of Revenue. Next point, supplemental budgets are good only through the end of the fiscal year or biennium in which they are adopted. They cannot be used to authorize changes in a prior year's budget. Source for that is the Local Budgeting Manual, May 2012, page 65, from the Property Tax Division of the Oregon Department of Revenue. The last point, a supplemental budget shall not extend beyond the end of the fiscal year during which it is submitted. ORS 294.471 sub 2. Source is a statutory and administrative rule reference dated March 2014, page 4 from the Oregon Department of Revenue. The applicable sections of these documents are submitted into the record with this memo. The recommendation, this agenda item should be tabled as no purpose is served by having any further discussion on the topic as submitted. Thank you.
So it looks to me like we'd be going against the law to approve supplemental budgets that are not for last year's fiscal year. True?
In my opinion, not.
Correct.
In my opinion, basically, we're doing no harm by doing this, and I think we're basically demonstrating that we are addressing this issue. We're not extending the budget past the 30th. This is strictly correcting what could have been approved on the 27th and was chose by the county not to approve at that date. I feel, since we're not doing anything, I don't think it's illegal to do this. And so I'm recommending that we approve these supplemental budgets.
Commissioner Huxley?
I have communicated numerous times with staff at the Oregon Department of Revenue as far as guidance on this general subject and other subjects. My most recent conversation was with their staff yesterday. Their comment, and I'll paraphrase, I'm not going to quote anyone, was that there's no point in doing this because you cannot have a supplemental budget that refers to a prior or a future fiscal year. You can't do it. And to say, not to split hairs, to say that it's legal or not legal, it would not be accepted by the Department of Revenue.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that point. I think from the auditor standpoint, the auditors, when they review the 2017-18 budget and they look at June 30th, they'll say that the supplemental budget was not approved by June 30th, and there'll be a note in the audit on that. It'll just be just a note on there, but there's nothing illegal about it, and I don't feel there's any, and Council Huddle can weigh in on if we're talking about legalities. I don't see any harm in doing this, and I would prefer, and I'm recommending that you approve these supplemental budgets.
As written, I adamantly disagree because you're saying
I'm not asking you to,
but
I'm
that's
not
what the
asking you to agree
documents
with me.
say.
I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm making a recommendation as the administrator of the county. You can choose to disregard that recommendation.
But you're saying vote with what you've heard to you recommend voting to incorrectly tempt, which won't be acceptable.
We've heard your
on the
point of view.
document.
We've heard a point of view. I would like to see the presentation from our financial
So
person.
Council Huddle, do you have anything to say about this issue?
Sure. So I'm looking at the handout from Commissioner Huxley, and I've also been in correspondence with the Department of Revenue staff, and that was a staff person at the Department of Revenue, and I asked that person for any Attorney General opinion or letter ruling from the department. All it really was an email, and they were not able to provide me with anything like that. So unfortunately, I don't always agree with State Department staff people. I have an alternative option as far as their interpretation of what they think the local budget law means. And part of it is supported by some of the materials in your document today, being the audit, where the board heard from our auditors, and if you look in the audit, I think it's so these supplemental budgets that we've done are things we've done for, Louise Kallstrom, and the supplemental budgets that were proposed in the last budget period aren't the first supplemental budgets we've done. To basically, they're like a reconciling or a corrective entry is essentially what's happening. You have a budget document, and then your spending occurs, and you say, oh, we need to allocate to cover that spending, and we adopt a supplemental budget. That's what this county has done in the past, is my understanding. We received an audit from, and I understand that we did that in the audit year that was just audited, and those auditors made a statement on page 150 of your packet. Stewardship, compliance, and accountability, budget information. Budgets are prepared and adopted, and expenditures are appropriated in accordance with Oregon local budget law. This is from our auditors, the professionals. Except for agency fund, so that's their first conclusion right there after reviewing our book. So again, I think this could be one of those situations where, depending on who you talk to, you may get a different answer. And I asked for support from the staff person in the Department of Revenue, and to this day I haven't received any.
And I will say, as you're well aware, you made a motion and a direction at the last meeting to have the budget committee meet 4 times a year or quarterly to review. And one of my goals would be to, going forward, is to do more projections to make sure that our department heads are anticipating if there's going to be a shortfall in the future, because we will strive, we're going to want to strive to do better and have less supplemental budgets. Are we going to have zero? Categorically, I'll probably say that's probably not the case.
Then
But we shouldn't let, we shouldn't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
The other
we
thing
should
I would
try
say,
to improve.
it says the supplemental budget is effective through the end of the fiscal year. We're not attempting to change the end of the fiscal year or make the supplemental budget that's proposed extend beyond the end of the fiscal year. There's no attempt to say we're extending this supplemental budget beyond June 30, 2018. So there's no extension of the budget beyond the fiscal year proposed. That's the way I understand it. A supplemental budget must be only for the current fiscal year. These were proposed before the end of the current fiscal year. They were continued, or they were not approved because we only had 2 board members at that time. Fiscal officer must pay close attention to each appropriation. You just heard Administrator Schroeder talk about that, and then you see again on page 150 of your packet what our auditors have thought about excess appropriations. In fact, on the same page where they conclude at their first sentence, budgets are prepared and adopted and expenditures are appropriated in accordance with Oregon local budget law, you look at their next bullet point, it says B, excess of expenditures over appropriation. They list out a whole bunch of expenditures over appropriation, and they have concluded that complies with local budget law. I can't, from this, again, who is the expert you're going to listen to? I think you have choices to make. And so then it says, Supplemental budgets are good only through the end of the fiscal year biennium in which they're adopted. Again, it was put before the board before the end of the biennium, and then they cannot be used to authorize changes in a prior year's budget. We're not adopting the 2018 or 2017 proposed budgets to change the 2016 year budget. So you can interpret it to not be changing a prior year's budget. And we're not changing the 2017-18 or whatever fiscal year we're in now to change the prior budget. So I just don't read these things the same way Commissioner Huxley reads them. A supplemental budget shall not extend beyond the end of the fiscal year. Again, we're not attempting to extend beyond the end of June 30th. So really, I don't read the budget law the same way Commissioner Huxley does. I've asked for clarification from the State Department of Revenue, received none, and our auditors have said we're complying with local budget law, even though on the same page they show what's called excess of expenditures over appropriation. I'm not a financial expert, but it looks like there is some room for action here by the board, that it's not categorical. And that's really, so you have a choice to make.
Commissioner Huxley?
Also the supplemental budgets were not, and it was acknowledged, were not properly noticed at the last meeting by statute.
And so this action was taken to correct the notice to give the proper amount of statutory time for publication and things. That's my understanding.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very, very helpful. Sometimes you get the bureaucracy of people meaning well, and but I think you've done your homework. I think Administrator Schroeder has done his homework. I think it just, the interest of a little bit of lightness, the comment you made about perfect, not the enemy of the good, or hopefully, that's kind of what we're dealing with here. You know, Accountant Kallstrom had a little intermission between her 2 times of employment here. I'm not trying to offer an excuse for her. However, she's been playing catch-up, no fault of hers, since that time. You've just come on board. There has been, if nothing else, the simple reality of the good faith effort to do the right thing here, and then add to that the audit report we had today. I can't imagine why we wouldn't approve these supplemental budgets. And also in the interest of your comments, Administrator Schroeder, that we can look to improving these. I know that's your goal and vision. I know that's your goal and vision without you even saying it. Let's move forward. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Huxley?
When I also discussed this with this staff member, they suggested 2 things. They suggested that personnel here, some of the personnel accounting sign up and attend some of the training sessions they have. They don't come down past Coos Bay. And they also suggested a possible teleconference if anybody wants to, or not anybody, but if certainly County Council, Ms. Kallstrom, want to discuss this further on this particular scenario. In their opinion, there is no interpretation. There's no wiggle room to go back. They have, one of these is about 150-page dated 2018 training session workshop that they have with various counties throughout the state of Oregon. That's one of the points in here that they train and teach, is that you cannot do that. So rather than go down a wrong, in my opinion, path here, we're after the close of the fiscal year anyway. I would suggest that a teleconference be arranged with Mr. Schroeder, Council Huddle, Ms. Kallstrom, perhaps, others to discuss this further.
What are the consequences if we were to pass these supplemental budgets?
Curry County will be happy. We
I
can move to more important things.
I don't know. They basically said it was of no value as a document, because they pulled up on the website also and looked at what was being proposed.
So
I would suggest that versus.
It seems we have a fundamental disagreement on this issue.
Yes, we
I
do.
don't think we're going to solve this issue right here. I would say, since Louise has already spent the time to go through all of these supplemental budgets last time, I would just pick them off and say I'd make a recommendation. I'd see a motion to approve supplemental budget number 17
You want them individual?
individually.
Okay.
Okay.
So moved, Madam Chair. Do you want specific number?
Nope, just supplemental budget number 17.
Supplemental budget number 17.
Do we have a second? I'll second that. Discussion? No discussion? Call for the question.
Aye.
No.
Aye. Okay, supplemental budget 18. Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved, Madam Chair. Although I don't see that. Oh, yes, I do. Third from the bottom. I move that we, the Sheriff's Special Reserve, supplemental budget number 18, that we approve that.
Do we have a second? I'll second that. Any discussion? Call for the question.
No.
Aye.
Aye.
Supplemental budget 19. Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved, Madam Chair. Chetco Fire, FEMA, supplemental budget.
Do we have a second? I'll second it. Call for the question.
No.
Aye.
Supplemental budget 20, Fund 2.50. Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved, Madam Chair. Supplemental budget, item number 20.
Do we have a second? I'll second that. Call for the question.
No.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on. Business pending actions. Reading Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee ordinance. John Huddle.
Thank you. So this is a second reading on this item. And if you recall, the board had, I think, approved the ordinance creating the committee. I don't have anything to add. There's a second reading. It's by the statutory requirements. And unless there's questions, this essentially will create the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, which would allow us then to begin soliciting and appointing membership.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve this ordinance?
So moved, Madam Chair.
I'll second.
Do we have any discussion? Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next is
19 months. That's awesome. Thank you.
next is the grant amendment for Brookings Head Start. Council Huddle?
Thanks, Madam Chair. And if you take a look at the materials, this the meat and potatoes of this is on page 377 of your packet. But if you recall, what happened with the Brookings Head Start is we did not, the value of the property increased since the time we applied for the grant. And so the line item on the grant for the acquisition was something like 300, but the appraisal came in higher. What this does is this takes money from, I think, construction and puts it into acquisition. The amount has gone up to $355,000, and then the construction went down to $977,000. So the amount of the grant stays the same. We just took money from one category to the other. It recognizes, you know, the other items. And then the second part of the amendment is to change the timelines for delivery. If you recall, we were getting close to, I think, either now or 2 months from now was going to be the completion date of the project. And we've got an extension till August 2019. So we've got another year, and the deliverables and the deadlines for the deliverables, architect engineering contract executed 31st of May. We've got the architect engineering contract executed. That's complete. They'll be complete September 30th. So the end of September we'll have construction drawings essentially. Then we'll go to bid. We'll have bid opening October 30th, and then we execute with the contractor within a month. and then we go ahead and start doing the demolition and renovation and those kind of things, and essentially be done. So really, it just allows us to carry out the intentions of the board when, after much, I thought, careful thought and deliberation, the board said we agree to continue. Again, a majority of the board, but again, I consider that to be the board. So that's really all I have, unless there's questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Then do I get a motion to approve this grant amendment to the Brookings Head Start?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Do I have a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? Call for the question.
I abstain.
Yay or?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So moving on, discussion, board direction, decision. Notice of a set hearing on petition to annex territory to Harbor Water Public Utility District. Council Huddle?
Thank you. So this is in the packet right after the item you just saw. We have a petition. It's contained on page 384. The resolution establishing, what we do is we basically establish a hearing. Now, the only thing that I would request, if the board agrees, we do have to have the hearing within X number of days of the petition being accepted. And the petition was submitted. It had review by the assessor and the clerk. There's a requirement, it's typically called the double majority. When you don't have all the people, you need to have, again, a percentage of the ownership as well as a percentage of the electors or the value of the property. Those percentages were signed off on. So then we can set a hearing and the public can then really vet that further. The only issue I have here, and essentially what happened is there's a private water delivery company delivering water to these lots, and the lots are found on page 387 of your packet, Upper Benham Lane, Harbor Vista, and Napa. And so those are the lots that are proposed to be served, annexed into the Harbor Water PUD. And again, a notice that the annexation is proposed. Again, we said there's a percentage of the people living there and a percentage of the electors and value. We will send a notice of the hearing to everyone in that district, and the notice will set the hearing for, and again, this will be at the Commissioner's office August 15, 2018. At that hearing, you're really just going to decide whether you're going to keep the same boundaries, and then once you establish that, you put out a notice and say, at a second hearing that we're going to do, we're going to have a final adoption of the annexation. So it's a two-hearing process. Consider the boundaries. If anyone wants to be in or out, they come and talk about it. And then the second one, you say, unless there's objections, we're going to adopt this. The one caveat on page 383, as we saw today with these 10:30 meetings, the board gets started and then we have an interruption. This order was prepared under the old protocol, saying the hearing would be August 15, 2018. What I'm requesting from the board is that we set the hearing for 1 o'clock or 1:15, sometime.
Be sure that it gets in the paper, right?
Yes, and all of the above. So that's really the only thing, unless there's any questions.
I'm just glad that you are sending individual cards out to people so that they know what's happening, those residents. Commissioner
On the
Huffley.
map,
Yes,
which
sir.
is on page 387,
Yeah.
and I realize that the assessor terminology, defines this, but are the lots in question, and this is a question, the ones that have the little, maybe 1/8 inch or whatever lines
The
around the
herringbone
perimeter?
hash marks.
Are those all of the lots in question? And not the ones on the west, or some of them, it's also on the east side of Upper Benham and the west, of Napa Lane and Upper Benham. But are those, there's like, I don't know, maybe a half dozen lots total, thereabouts?
Very good. So that's exactly the kind of question that gets answered at the hearing. This notice will go out, and people in both of those areas will get the notice. and they can come and say whether they're in or out. And the petitioner will be here. This is just a hearing, and I also think, Mr. Commissioner, that your answer would be found. So we have two descriptions of the property. One is this meets and bounds description that's found on 385 to 386, and then the next is the drawing. I think the answer to your question is found in that meets and bounds prepared by, I think that's Rich Roberts. Yeah, it is Rich Roberts' survey. So those are the kind of people who would answer that. That's the kind of thing the hearing's for. And this note, and so I don't want to go back to the livestock district, but if you remember, they drew a map, and what we found afterwards, the attorney for the owner said, well, we actually are the owners of some of that property in there. So the hearing, and we're going to give notice to all these people, and plus there's newspaper publication and posting, but the hearing should answer those questions.
So Harbor Water is the one that's requesting this, correct?
Thank you. We have I would almost consider it a dual request, because we have a resolution from Harbor Water requesting it, and their request, so if it's a petitioner from property owners, and we do have a lot of signatures, the whole petition was not included in here with all the signatures of the people, I don't think, just the proposed area, but
And there's nobody here from Harbor Water.
no, because this is only to tell people when to come.
Understand.
Thank you. And so, but we do have a resolution that's not in your packet, signed by the board of Harbor Water, saying we want to initiate the annexation. So they've done it, and then the law allows a district board to initiate it. And then we also have the petitioners requesting that we initiate it with the signatures of the property owners and the electors and that type of thing. So in some ways you could argue there's been a belt and suspenders approach, where you have a resolution from the district board as well as the petition from the, again, loosely called the double majority, based on statutory formulas of the people who would be in the district. And all of that is going to be sussed out at the hearing.
Commissioner Huxley?
This is not a question, it's just a FYI. This location back about 2001 or 2000, even before 2000 it was put in, there were fire hydrants and all sorts of stuff, fire systems here, and with the one caveat is that there was no water in the fire hydrants.
My understanding,
The truth, that's what started.
Yep.
That's what started this whole thing with these people that had purchased these properties,
That looks
and you
good,
go to
huh?
turn on, and there's no water in the fire hydrant. And then they finally took a 1 inch or a 1.5 inch water service and hooked it up to the fire system and said, have at it.
there may be a little bit of that. I've heard even more than that. I've heard that it's a private water supply. I can't remember the name of it, but there's a private water supply going on there right now, and they actually have a reservoir, I believe, and the provision will be, that all that equipment, the reservoir, the pipes will become the property of the Harbor Water PUD. So I think it will be, again, my hunch is, from what I've seen of the people who signed, the vast majority of the folks in the area, besides just the Harbor Water District Board having a resolution to initiate, the vast majority of the folks in the service area would like to be in the Harbor Water PUD too, and we're going to do our best to notify every single person.
Yeah, I think that's really good in light of the last fiasco, the annexation.
The hard part is, Madam Chair, is,
I wasn't here.
No, well, I know that, but even in that one, I truly believe the failing was in the state statute that only required newspaper notice for publication. That is generally seen as, a very poor form of notifying someone that their substantial rights will be affected. And again, that's something we're still going to be talking about across the street.
Well, that's why I'm glad you're sending notice to all these folks.
Thank you.
That's important.
But really, what I would do is, the order recommends 10:30. If the board would like to have a hearing on this, then I would just recommend we change it, amend the order to say 1 o'clock.
I think that would be preferable simply because when we have it at 10:30 or whatever, there's so much other stuff that
We're barely
happens,
getting
so.
started. Yeah, we're in the middle of something usually.
Barely getting started.
So do we have a motion to?
I'm just, that's
Barely
my,
getting started.
that's my experience, but
I agree.
Okay.
I just thought it
All
was
right.
priceless.
Okay, do we have a motion to change the time of the hearing for the Harbor Water District annexation?
Chair, I'd motion to approve the proposed worded resolution with the exception that the time of the public hearing would change till 1 p.m. on August 15th, 2018.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on, discussion, board direction and decision. We talked about that. So, announcements. Oh, good. 2 Coos Curry Housing Authority terms expiring January 3rd and April 29th.
So you
we-
appointed one person, so we just need one.
We need to get one.
Yep.
The Ambulance Service Advisory Committee, we took care of that. We need 1 Mountain Drive Special Road District, whose term expires the 31st of December. And July 25th is a workshop, 10 a.m. in the Commissioners' Hearing Room. July 25th through 28th is the County Fair. August 1st is the general meeting at 10 a.m. in the Commissioners' Hearing Room. August 15th is the general meeting at 10 a.m. in the Commissioners' Hearing Room. So, next on the agenda, Commissioners, or Administrators, oh, you have a question?
Just an addition, I'll do it here because just of what I see maybe is the time. I have a communication back and forth here, and I'd like to enter this into the public record also, on the Budget Committee members, the Curry County Budget Committee members. And I had communicated with Administrator Schroeder on July 8th that there exists 1 3-year term because it was Carl King's had served 3 years. So that we get the jump on this, especially because there's going to be a Budget Committee meeting at the end of October to discuss in detail revenue and expenses, income statements, etc. for the first quarter of
When
the
is his
fiscal
term
year.
up?
Well, he served 3 years, but it was put, the wrong date was put in the order.
Oh.
So this went back and forth, and then basically Administrator Schroeder sent me back with a question. I emailed back, then John Jesuit emails back and gives the orders, and then as soon as I saw the dates on the orders, I said, oh my gosh, there's not just one mistake here, there's at least 2. So my suggestion was that we correct the 2. Bill Ostrowski was
He was just
appointed for 4 years, though, based on the
Oh.
dates. Carl King was appointed for 4 years based on the dates. My suggestion was both orders be corrected now, and then we proceed as recommended below to put this out for a fixed time for the opening, so that we can have this done properly before the fact and be all ready for that individual, whoever that may be, to participate in the first quarterly Budget Committee meeting. It could be done with a scrivener's error. We've recently, maybe in the last year, authorized Council Huddle to do just things like this. That would be probably the easiest approach, and then get this thing on the next meeting and thereafter on the announcements and advertised on the website under the committees and councils.
Yeah? Do
So-
we kind of have a consensus to do that? Just Scrivener's error?
well, what
Dates
That's
wrong.
one suggestion.
yeah, if the
or-
dates, if it is truly just a wrong date, but it's Scrivener's
Just had the
error.
expiration date was incorrect.
So usually a Scrivener's error, if the board would have said, we appoint this, committee member to expire on, this date in 2017, and then it was written in as 2018. But if the board is presented with something that says this time, I would have to look at it. If we can do a Scrivener's error, I'll do a Scrivener's error.
If not, for Administrative Schroeder
Thank you.
to do a correction
Exactly.
with two documents, void the
I-
first one and then
exactly.
another
Yeah,
one.
I
We'll
basically,
take a real
I
hard
basically
look
put
at
it
it.
on my calendar
Yeah.
to look at next week after I got done with this meeting, to something to research and figure out what I need to do with it. So I've not spent any more time on
Okay,
it since
so
our last
I'd like that
correspondence.
just put into
Mr.
the
Boyce?
record.
Does it in any way increase the length of the terms? I didn't hear that, did I?
It corrects the incorrect terms that are on paper 4 years versus 3. It corrects those, and then everything's
Were they always 3-year
correct.
terms?
Yes, always.
Yeah, well,
3-year terms.
Correct.
Okay.
Carl King?
Point of information, I think this is a result of both of these vacancies being filled late. Mr. Spicer's term expired on June 30th, and I think we were almost into the next year before the board voted to fill that vacancy.
Okay.
So it's understandable why it happened, but I have served on 3 budgets. And that's what I was appointed to serve on, 3 budgets. And Bill is the same situation. His vacancy sat there until long after Sam's expired the prior June 30th. So again, whether it's legally a Scrivener's error, it was a mistake in someone looking at the calendar and counting the years wrong. But I've had my 3 years.
But an
Are
easy
you saying
solution.
you've had it? Or-
Well, no, but I've had the 3 years I'm entitled to, and I'd rather have this corrected now than someone correct it in November and say whatever I do in October doesn't count.
No, I totally understand. That should be right.
Well said.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of digress a bit. We've got,
actually, I have a couple comments before
Oh, okay.
I go into the main meat of the
because we've got to get back to these orders
But
on
we have
transportation.
these orders.
So we have these orders for transportation that staff put together during break here. So there's one that would be, actually, maybe John, you could carry through with this.
Well, sure. So remember, on the AGRS, there were 3 actions. These orders are those 3 actions. One is dissolving the formerly combined Transit Advisory and STF Advisory Committee, and we refer to the order that Kathy Bernhardt provided us with that established that committee. And as she explained, there's been changes to the legal and administrative scheme regarding STF, and they're now regulated by State Transportation Improvement Program, the STIP. So we've gone from STS to STIP. And then the board received the report from Kathy Bernhardt recommending dissolution. And so the first order is to dissolve that. I'll go over the 3 orders, and then I think you'll need 3 motions, but I'll just
How
do
about
it.
we do a motion as
Very
we
good.
go?
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Okay,
You can
so do
that.
I have a motion to rescind order number 12313? That order is going to be dissolved. If you look at the last little sentence here.
Chair, I'd motion that we remove, or basically order number 12313 dated March 15th, 2006
That was-
for the
Transit District.
Curry County Transit Advisory Committee and STF Advisory Committee.
Do we have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Any discussion? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the next one, Council Huddle.
Thank you. So the next one then is to create what we're calling the County Transit Advisory Committee, and that's the one we went over the bylaws with the membership. And so this basically adopts the bylaws and creates what's called the Curry County Transit Advisory Committee. And this says the bylaws are attached as Exhibit A. When this gets filed, they'll be there. But in the meantime, for the purpose of this, they're in your packet. Kathy did say, that she had the bylaws reviewed favorably by Oregon Department of Transportation as well. and then it says you've reviewed them and found them to be in the public interest.
So move, Madam Chair, to create the new Transit Advisory Committee.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Question.
Discussion?
Yeah. This is a question for County Council. With that, would it make sense in the top of this, just to the left of the order number, it says an order creating the Transit Advisory Committee, but to make reference to adopting the bylaws?
Thank you. We can amend the title. It does say that
I
the
realize
bylaws,
down below
Yep.
it says it, but
So,
typically
sure.
most of these orders would give you a better
Yep.
quick overview of what
I agree.
what you
Well, I will get that to Brenda Starbird, and we'll make that happen. And that's not a problem.
Do you want to amend your motion, just a titch, so we can get the title right on this resolution or order?
Remind me again the title you prefer, Madam Chair.
So
Well,
I would just add adopting bylaws
Yeah,
to the
just
title.
add adopting bylaws to the advisory
To
committee.
the motion, yeah.
Okay, so a motion to adopt the bylaws.
It would be basically the order creating the Curry County Transit Advisory Committee adopting bylaws.
Okay, there we go. You so move?
So moved, Madam.
I'll second that.
Second. Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye. The next one?
Thank you. The last one is the actual appointment then. Now, if you remember when we went over the bylaws, it said the membership shall be, I think it said 5 to 9 or 7 to 9. And, you know, the Commissioner Huxley and I have just had a conversation of, depending on the size of your body, that creates a quorum. And I heard Kathy Bernhardt say she would like 9, and that she had, I think, we have 7 now, and she thinks she can get 2 others. But what we're proposing is that we have a 9-member body, and so that's what this order says. It says that we had the report from Transit District Manager Kathy Bernhardt that there have been, changes, that the recommendation of the manager was to dissolve it. The manager presented bylaws that established that, and they were reviewed favorably. And then the it does say in this third paragraph, third whereas, Board of Commissioners determined that committee membership shall be 9 members. So because that way then you have to have a majority of 9 to be a quorum, which would be 5. And then if I could go through the order of the appointment, these are the people she talked about and what they would be. And then position 7, there was some discussion of, she thought it would be good to have a commissioner on board, and I wasn't sure and so the board would have to decide among you which one that would be. So position 7 would be filled in to be one of the 3 of you, and then the other 2, I believe she has candidates in mind that she just couldn't get formalized by today's meeting, and those appointments would happen at a future date by a future order.
Well, I said I'd be willing to serve, so.
I was going to, I'd say motion on that point. I think Commissioner Gold was the first one to volunteer. I would
And I've taken advantage of their services, just to let you know.
motion that she be the commissioner, at least for the first term.
Okay.
Second.
It says it expires, June? You said number 7?
Number 7 is a 3-year,
Okay,
expires
that's a 3-year, okay.
2021.
Okay.
Well, maybe I better
Would you want to do that, or would you want to do number
Well-
8? Could you do that? That expires. No, it's still in June, so it's.
Well, but it's a 8 is a 2-year, so as you
Yeah.
can see, like Kathy said, we stagger them to make sure we get.
Yeah. But they're not expiring on December 31st, so it really doesn't matter
Okay.
to group it. So just
Doesn't
leave it
matter.
as position 7 for
Doesn't
that
matter.
term.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, I think a second.
Yes.
Okay, call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now I get to go to some more meetings. Okay, next.
The administrator updates, and I have some updates.
Okay, that's where I was going.
Just kind of highlighting a couple things that staff have been working on from the code enforcement aspect, as was previously referred to in the public comment period, staff is currently working on some issues at Hamilton Lane. We successfully served the executor of the estate. If he does not answer by the 23rd, they'll move for default. If he does answer in time, we'll move for preliminary injunction to remove structures before trial. That first happened second week of August, and no trial date obviously is set since we're still working on it. Lucas Lane property was sold. The new buyer basically has said that they're going to clean it up, so staff will be monitoring that situation and seeing if they will clean that up. And the Benham Lane, we thought we had tamed the property through tax foreclosure and then remediate it when we owned it, but they paid, so we need to sue for enforcement in this case, and we'll initiate litigation in that case. So those are just some of the things that we're working on. And I think it just exemplifies the fact that it's not as simple as I'm learning, trying to develop these policies and procedures to enforce nuisance and health and junk autos and all the other stuff you think about that are in our ordinances. We have to be very specific about what type of issues we're dealing with, and if property owners are unwilling or unable to comply, it becomes a lengthy legal process to force compliance. The concept of code enforcement, in my experience, is you want people to voluntarily comply. That's the easiest, the cheapest, and the safest route for counties to have this issue happen, because everything else from that is lengthy and structured to become costly for the county to deal with. So I just want people to understand that just because we're going to be addressing issues doesn't mean that property owners will voluntarily comply. Brookings Head Start, modify the contract to adjust the acquisition. We've published and took comments on the environmental review. There are no comments. We've asked for release of funds for acquisition. Architects going forward on that, and buildable plans will go to a bid anticipating in September. Yes, sir.
I just received an email that we have received a check from Orca for $30,000, which was a side agreement that they contribute the first $30,000 to the architect work on this. So, again, as you know, as much as we just received it. So, but again, I think with this project that's been so snake bit, I think we're off the schneid here, and hopefully we'll be getting this thing done. If I have any say in the matter, it'll all be good to go by August next year.
Brookings Airport, all the parties have extended the closing to July 26th. Most, if not all, the tenants have signed the documents to transfer the leases to the city. ODA is signed off. FAA grant completed. Final reports are submitted. FAA still requiring a few more items before sign off, and anticipating those shortly. Any other updates on that, Mr. Huddle?
Nope. We're just trying to keep the pressure on the FAA. The ODA has signed everything. Really, once we get the FAA signatures, I think we'll be ready to close. So
okay.
That's
other updates which I've been working on the last couple of weeks. I've been involved with a couple citizens that are interested in buying properties adjacent to theirs. I've read through the 2015 Real Property Task Force. People put a lot of work into that, and I'm meeting with Council Huddle to help develop a procedure to help at least transfer some of these and sell some of these small properties to individuals which are unbuildable and unmarketable besides somebody next to them. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we can get some of that done and get rid of some of these properties. Been a number of nuisance complaint calls, people complaining about neighbors, obviously, and I'm gathering information again to develop the procedures and address such in light of our expected hiring of a code enforcement officer. I'll also, as an individual, I also carry the authority to carry out the enforcement myself, but I'm limited on time to do that. But when you created this position, as I alluded to earlier, I have the authority to carry through and issue citations with a badge.
Can I ask a question on follow on the code enforcement
Yes.
topic? When, I know the last time I asked you, the position had not been advertised yet. Is it now being advertised?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a 20-hour position for people who, if you're interested in it, so
$20? did you say?
20-hour.
Oh, 20 hours.
20-hour a week position.
Okay.
Took a nice tour of the Floral Lakes property, the 500-acre piece the other day. I thought that was very interesting to see, walk through there. It's absolutely a beautiful piece of property. Access obviously is a significant impediment to any type of work, either turning it into a recreational use or anything else. That would have to be solved. And the other thing, in reviewing that property, there's a lot of, through historical issues, there's a lot of small little properties in the center that are still privately held. Again, we'd have to find staff to, to work on figuring out who owns them and why do they own them and do they still own them, and there's a lot of issues that have to clean that property up no matter what you do with it. So hopefully we'll be able to come forward and solve those issues. So as you saw earlier, Park and Recs Committee, it's my understanding from Council Huddle that ordinance will be in effect 90 days from today, if that's correct. Council Huddle?
Thank you. That's the usual rule on a non-emergency ordinance, so.
Okay, all right. So,
but that should allow us time to advertise.
Yep, so we will advertise and we'll put the form online with a fillable PDF for people to apply for that. They're interested in offering help and guidance to the county for our Park and Recs department. I've taken a couple tours, been involved with, went down to Social Security Bar, kind of reviewed that property, and to see if there's something maybe the county could do with that. So I'll be working on that and making a recommendation back to the governing body. Housing Authority member, we need one. The Budget Committee is going to be meeting on Halloween, on October 31st at 10 a.m. I would expect everybody to dress up for that occasion, by the way, so dress appropriately. So, with that, I have, that's all my updates I have, and I do have a seeking guidance on travel enforcement that I would like to go to next.
Okay.
Can I ask you a couple questions real quick on that? You mentioned Social Security Bar
Yeah.
and the property the Brookings owns. Have you walked? Did you get a chance to walk that when you were down there? You give me a little information.
Oh yeah, I went down there. I brought my truck down there. I set my little chair up and enjoyed the
That's
property.
under the trees and the shade. I mean, and I want to make sure I'm following.
So
there's nice piece of property.
Yeah, so there's two separate issues there. So the access is owned by the city, and
they've had it for about 12 years.
That's all up on the road, and it seems it's from the topography, it's kind of up and down a little bit. The four-wheelers are using the first stuff, and then of course the state owns the bar itself. One of the things that I think might be worth exploring is seeing, is that something that we could put together and over time develop a camping or experience for the Parks Department. So again, trying to monitor it, because right now there's really nobody that monitors it. And if we were to monitor it from the county's perspective and get a camp host and develop it to the place where we have somebody down there, I think it'd be a great amenity for
that's a nice place.
for people to come and people are passing through for a day or two, put their campers down there and stuff like that. So this is kind of something I think Josh has been working on it, and he has some great ideas for that, and he wanted to make sure that it's something that we would be willing to support. So I'll be working forward on that.
Okay.
Second question on the Citizens Park Advisory Committee. So do I understand that in the next 90 days we can get the word out that we are looking for committee members? We might have a couple in the back row here today.
Yeah, but anyway, sure. I think we have the committee. It'll be finalized, and after the time goes by, and then we can start appointing. But it's not too early to talk to people.
Okay, so we'll
Thank
be
you.
collecting applications.
Okay, thanks.
I'm gonna need more than 3 minutes.
That's fine.
So the issue I bring before you today goes back to the enforcement of the travel policy for elected commissioners. It brings me no pleasure to come before you today to seek this enforcement action against Commissioner Boyce. As county administrator, I report to all three commissioners equally. More to the point, I take direction only from the whole county board, not from individual commissioners. So I just want to say this is an awkward position which I've been put in. How did we get here? It's been percolating for some time. I'm just the end of the chain here, as this has been going on for over a year, I guess. So the travel policy was enacted in August 2nd of 2017 for commissioners and elected officials. And I want to clarify that the travel policy is applicable to all elected officials in the county, with the exception of the sheriff and of the assessor while he's doing assessment duties throughout the county. So they have to abide by the same policy. It was amended on November 1st, 2017. In December 12th, a letter from Interim Administrator Hitt to Boyce warning of a violation of the travel policy by driving a county vehicle within Curry County for county business, and that he had exceeded the travel budget for commissioners. On June 1st, a letter from acting interim county administrator John Huddle asking to return the keys for a county vehicle, which Commissioner Boyce stated he had, and a second warning to comply with the adopted travel policy and to pay back excess travel budget. June 27th of this year, County Board meeting directed me to seek outside counsel due to Council Huddle having an inherent conflict regarding this issue, and to seek compliance and repayment of excess travel payments. So that brings us to today. Today I have three issues. I would like to engage the law firm Dunn & Carney for legal advice under the budget item which I detailed in the memo, which you have all seen and which is in the packet. I'd like you to direct me to issue a citation to Commissioner Boyce for using a county vehicle on July 10th for county travel against the travel policy. As county administrator, I'm charged with enforcing all ordinances, orders, rules, regulations, procedures, and policies that have been adopted by the board and by the administrator. I've been issued badge number 005 by the Coos and Curry State Courts to carry out such enforcement actions. When final excess spending for travel budgets have been finalized, I will seek payment from Commissioner Boyce. And if he does not reimburse the county, then I will seek a small claims court, which I'll be getting advice from Dunn & Carney to walk through that process. With that, I would like to see a motion that says, direct the county administrator to issue a citation to Commissioner Boyce for using the county vehicle on July 10th and for in-county travel against the travel policy, and to seek reimbursement of excess travel. With that, I'll take questions.
So you
Questions?
were asked, did you begin that with a request, you are asking for a motion, or you want questions?
That's the motion. The motion is direct county administrator to issue a citation to Commissioner Boyce for using a county vehicle on July 10th for in-county travel against the travel policy, and to seek reimbursement of for excess travel.
I would motion to what you just referred to with those 2 points.
So we're going to open this up to questions or comments?
Do
Or
we have a
I think then
second?
you're
We'll
gonna
go
have a
through the
second,
motion.
then
There has to
open
be a
it.
second.
Okay.
Okay, is there a second? I'll second that. Discussion.
So, no fourth option. We have a couple hands in the back.
Well, you guys talked about it this morning too, so.
No, I did not talk about the travel issues at all.
I think they've been I got a feeling they've been waiting here all day, Madam Chair. But I have, no fourth option, which would be to let this thing go and just bury it in the deepest sea from just purely rational approach to what that travel was based on. No reference. Wait, I'm not done. No reference, sir, on the $7,500 that I turned in, that I've paid back out of my own pocket, if you want to include the rather substantial amount of the meals that I forego that could have been pocketed. Couldn't do that, wouldn't do that, but it is a significant amount. So no effort to change the policy from you. No fourth option that this is not good business and that my travel is totally valid?
No, I have gone to all three of you to try to find a solution for this. I have asked if you would be willing to enter into a payment plan to pay back the excess travel. You have refused to do that.
When the county owes me more than I owe the county, and we don't even have what that amount is, I challenged you on that this morning, sir. We don't know if it's $4,000 or $6,000.
Per diem.
Here's a perfect example.
Per diem allowance is not available for in-county travel.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what got us over the budget amount. The excesses you put in your agenda routing slip. Excess, okay? And compliance. So let's just take one example. I worked very hard through the Association of ONC Counties to get additional money, including traveling to Medford once, plus on the phone with the office of Greg Walden. We got $1.7 million to our county. I'm representing this county very well. That's $1 million more than we got last year. Would this board like me to forego that travel, or you just want me to continue to pay it out of my own pocket? How do we get around this? No offer from this board, including you and you, to say, let's take a serious look at this. You say you come into my office and you went into their office. The results are, no, I'm not going to pay back when I've put a substantial amount of my own money, been very responsible, very determined, very intent, and committed to doing the right thing as I promised the people. So any one of these three options.
I'm not arguing that you work hard. You are here every day. I basically, I have not been able to get the other two commissioners to buy in to change travel policy. If we could change that travel policy, this would all go away. I'm not able to convince anybody to do that. I basically take direction from the county board. The county board is going to enforce this. I'm the mechanism to enforce this.
So we don't have a fourth option here. And
your fellow commissioners are where your fourth option is. I have tried to get a solution to this, and I have failed.
Okay. So. Okay. Well, you sure should be allowed.
You've got 3 minutes.
2 minutes?
3.
Thank you. I like the generosity there.
Well, that's what every other public
I
comment
know,
gets.
Sue. I know you want the best for our county, just like the rest of us. Anyway, Commissioner Boyce, can I ask you a simple question before I get the time running out too fast? Was your father in the military, and what branch, if he was?
U.S. Marines, proud to say, man.
Okay, so we need to get real acquainted, and every time there's a new guy in the room, we have to educate them about veterans and what our county looks like. Leadership, okay, know your citizens. 26.7% of our county population are veterans. Family members, just associate one family member with each veteran. You have a pretty good idea what our county looks like, okay? And there's such a thing as PTSD in our veterans community and second generation PTSD in our family members. South Curry County, the denseness of population puts it closer to 1 in 3 people are veterans. We have a mental health crisis. We had a natural disaster that was triggering people's phone calls to me like you would not believe. I was driving to Idaho to try and talk to a sergeant major there who's at the LDS church to try and bring more food into this county because we were, as a board member of the food bank, we were looking for that money. But you know who was nuts and bolts and coordinating all those bits and pieces to make sure they worked well, making sure that the food bank hours were extended to feed our military families, and we're talking also active duty reservists and also our guard It doesn't take a sociologist to understand the citizens of South Curry County expect, because they're military families, they expect a ranking government official from the county to demonstrate leadership and show up. Now, we haven't even begun to talk about the Oregon Health Authority and the county health authority in this big picture. The U.S. Forest Foundation has $7,500 that was set aside for people have donated toward supporting good outcomes and restoration after the fire. If that money has not been given over to a nonprofit, it could be given over to Curry Community Health. Curry Community Health does manage a lot of the county health authority responsibilities. That could then be given over to a fund, because best practices, and that, as our gentleman reported earlier, communication of risk is huge in that. When you have suicide rate among your adolescents, your seniors, and your veterans, and a situation, and the largest living group of veterans in South Curry County are our Vietnam veterans, and that smoke triggered 70 phone calls to me in desperation. And the biggest question that was asked of me as I answered their ones about mental health and dealing with their PTSD being triggered was, what does Court Boyce say? I said, well, Court Boyce has been at all the meetings and you can count on him. We have another way to go if we want to bring people together. Let's not divide anymore.
Thank you. Sure, why not?
Why do you resent that?
Well,
Why? That's amazing.
you
to
know
me.
what? Let's just leave it. Go ahead, Mr. Barnes.
Thank you very much. I just want to point out, after I spoke this morning, I listened to Jeremy Dumeyer speak. And I want to remind this board that it's about a year ago that the first notice of the Chetco Bar Fire took place. And at that time, it was about 100 acres. Chetco Bar Fire grew to 191,000 acres before it was finally put under control and put out. Because of some of the work that Commissioner Boyce has done, there was no response to the Chetco Bar Fire for a month. Because of some of the work that Commissioner Boyce has done over the last year, it was 3 weeks ago that the Lobster Creek fire started. When that started, that was about 100 acres too when that got noticed. Within 3 days, we had 750 firefighters and 6 air support units out there addressing that fire. That fire was contained to 396 acres. 191,000 acres versus 396 acres because of the work that the man sitting next to you has done. I think the small price to pay, the amount that he's traveled, that you're looking to get out of him, I think that's a small price to pay for the fire protection and the enhanced service that we're getting in this county now because of him. And, you want a fourth suggestion? I got one for you. Just like you voted to table the charges against Commissioner Huxley, vote to table this matter, put it to bed, and stop talking about it. Thank you.
So right now, Administrator Schroeder, we have 8 fires that are growing substantially within the 3 districts, the Siskiyou Mountain, the Josephine Jackson County Forest District, and of course the Kalmiopsis. The report we got from Mr. Dumeyer this morning was that they were about 8 acres. That wasn't accurate, each coincidentally. That was an accurate report. Now they're already up to 100. They had a bad east wind last night that went into daylight this morning. So not to sound unnecessarily the alarm too fast, but that's where my focus is going to be in the next few days, and I am very hopeful as we sit here in those 3 ranger districts with as many as 70 fires. Some haven't even been discovered yet. One of the most unusual series of lightning that we've had here in many years. In working with the new district ranger, forest supervisor for the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest, he started moving equipment in here 2 weeks ago before we had an idea, on his insight and wisdom, and a lot of wise people, I believe, challenging him to, boy, be ready. We don't know what we're going to be faced with today. So, it's back to, I'm going to challenge you a little bit, if I may, on your contention that most of the elected officials are restricted from traveling the county. Not so. you went to, you took the car, which I thought was fine, to Port Orford the other day. And so for you to be able to travel and me not to be able to travel, I'm just going to battle this. And so I'm anxious to go before a judge. I think I'll get my attorney fees. I think I will prevail in this due to the emergency situation and the amounts that I've paid out of my own pocket. Common sense will prevail. I've already won in the court of public opinion and should, which is a motivation for me to keep doing and fulfilling my responsibility. No harm's been done to the citizens with going over their rules. To the contrary, as you've just heard the testimony here today and earlier, no new taxes were required. I'm doing exactly what I said I would do before I was elected, and that's what the people are counting on me to do. So I'll take the heat, and I'm sorry that you're in this position, but I don't get a sense that you're even discouraged with this, and that is a disappointment to me. Maybe I'm reading it wrong.
No, you're right, wrong. This is an awful spot to be in. If it were up to
just
me,
make one comment?
if it were up to me, I would say let's just give you the Taurus to use.
13-year-old car, and I got to beg for it.
I would not have a problem with it, but I don't get to choose that. I don't get to choose the policies that
You knew what you're getting into coming here.
Yeah, I do. Oh, yeah, but I don't get to change the policy that's been adopted by the board. And if I don't get direction from the board to do this, I probably wouldn't do it.
Let me just say this. I don't think this is ever mentioned in the newspaper, but both Commissioner Huxley and myself gave an extra $3,000, which should have been helpful for him to use for the fire travel. Also, in the travel policy, if you are over, you can certainly come to the commissioners and ask for extra money.
I
That's
did
in
through the, excuse me,
Never happened.
we just talked about that back in September as the fire was finally starting to wear down. You know, I'm not going to give you kudos, forgive me, but for doing the $3,000, because you know I'm traveling and doing your job as well as mine. You understand that. So you need to decide fairly soon, what forms of travel do you want me to stop doing? I'm glad that you are willing to serve on the Public Transit Board. I would have done that. I think you'll do a great job, but you need to do more of that. And that's what the people thought they were getting when they elected you as a full-time commissioner. So you're gladly able to do, I mean, I'm happy to have you do some of this travel that is required to be responsible to our
I won't be charging
spots.
the county a dime for it.
Well, maybe you
Take
can
care of
afford
it on
to
my
do
own.
that. That's great. Maybe that's wonderful.
But you know,
okay?
we're kinda
I'm not
getting
going
off
to do it
subject
anymore
here.
because I was willing to do it too, ma'am, until you took this policy and wouldn't even make an emergency exception. This is what's drawn this county down to such a sad state. I've tried to work with you. I've tried to overcome. It hasn't worked. I have a letter I want to read here. Okay, if when the time is
We're
appropriate.
on discussion. We've got a motion on the floor and a second.
Did you have something else?
Nope.
Okay. So, this is my response to Tom Huxley's Curry Coastal Pilot Forum, July 7th. In his forum letter, Commissioner Huxley makes a mockery of the law, attempting to serve his own interests in the governance of our county. It may well be too late, but I challenge him to fulfill his sworn responsibility to vigorously serve the people who elected him, using the very simplest guidelines we have, right and wrong. The issue between us is about ethics and public trust. His efforts to condemn my travel expenses on county business serves only to emphasize his own lack of ethics in the service of the people of this county, especially in a time of crisis. While I was traveling to Brookings nearly every day as our citizens were threatened by a devastating wildfire, he was nowhere to be found. And by the way, Commissioner Gold, I was at every briefing meeting. You said you called in. I never heard you call in and identify
There
yourself.
was a Sunday. I went to the Gold Beach meeting, Brookings meeting. But, you know,
Instead-
that's neither here nor there.
Instead of working for the interests of the people and the protection of our environment, Tom Huxley attempts to use, expand, and distort the law to serve his dogmatic personal agenda. His myopic focus is reminiscent of the Pharisees of ancient Israel. They too used, distorted, and degraded the laws to repress others and help themselves. We're to work for the people of Curry County, not rule them. Just like these people wanting to speak today.
They just
it's just
spoke.
astonishing. Yeah, over your
Okay,
resentment.
continue.
Our policies are to be tools used to help us operate with thoughtful order, not to control those we oppose. His actions are blatant, deliberate, well recorded, and consistently hurtful to the people he is supposed to be serving. Since elected in November 2016, I've tried my best to work with both of you, all to no avail. Each day, more and more of our citizens, the people we promised to serve, are seeing the damage that he has done and continues to do to our communities. It is my 24/7 commitment to help our county overcome, repair, and recover from the destruction wrought by his incompetence and executive malfeasance. People are known both by their friends and their enemies. We are either respected for our honor and integrity, or we are not. I stand on my record and my resolve to do right by the people I promised to serve. I will continue to establish and fiercely pursue wise priorities and maximize my effectiveness as a full-time working commissioner. Commissioner Huxley's attempt to publicly promote the ridiculous notion that my decisions and efforts to be present in a time of extreme emergency constitute a Class C felony is beyond egregious. We are talking about driving to Brookings to attend and participate in all emergency fire briefings and other important mission critical activities. Perhaps the true crime is that Commissioner Huxley didn't bother. My conscience is clear, and those I serve know exactly where I was and what I was doing. Standing with the people I pledged to help, doing all that I could in the midst of a terrible situation. Mr. Huxley might have used his energy to recognize and address the need for an emergency component in the travel policy and work to correct it in the midst of the unprecedented situation we face. Instead, he has chosen to use the travel policy issue to further his personal and political agenda against me. If he has a case, he should make it here and now or publicly retract. I didn't break any laws, however, I am guilty of breaking his rules. The facts, truth, and full context will surface. In the end, who and how we both serve will be properly judged, and in each will have our true legacy revealed. In the meantime, I believe Tom Huxley should resign his position as a county commissioner and leave before he complicates the issues of our county any more than he already has. Today is a perfect example. 2 issues, and I will vigorously battle for what is right and work to reverse the 3.5 years of damages left in his wake and the people you've affected that have left this building. The fact that he only has another 6 months in his term cannot excuse or rationalize his parting shots and continuing chaos. More destruction is something we can ill afford.
Okay, any other discussion?
And today, with nobody else in this room, or excuse me, the 5 is on this bench, the antenna's not going up, that he has worked with Attorney Bruce Bischoff in the past, and that's not a conflict. The people I run with would never allow me to even give the slightest appearance, especially when you're responsible for public money and public trust. And so here we are, $20,000 later, we're on a spending binge here that, in spite of the pilt amount that we just received, I'm afraid it's going to be squandered. So I've got to push back. You can count on that, and it includes going before a judge on this ridiculous motion that we have here before us.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, with that, there's been a request, and I would like the county board to weigh in on the allowing the department heads to come to the executive session to give feedback concerning labor negotiations for the SEI union.
Thank you. Excellent.
I think that would be fine for the department heads to be here, then they can let us know ramifications and so forth of various actions.
Okay, so department heads, if you're watching, after the commissioner comments, we'll be going into an executive session.
Okay, moving on, Commissioner
Gold.
Yes.
You just said department heads. I think you meant elected officials as well.
Yeah, they're
Okay,
department
thank
heads
you.
also. Okay, we have commissioner updates. Commissioner Huxley, do you have anything?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Boyce, do you have anything?
I do. I just mentioned the fire there a little bit ago. So I'll let that go, because I think we'll know a lot more by this evening or maybe tomorrow morning. And yes, I've been spending a lot of time at the Oregon Department of Forestry in Salem, getting to know people up there, and I wrote a letter of tremendous gratitude for the effort. It was just referenced by one of the members of the public on the Lobster Creek fire. That thing went to slightly less than 400 acres. Coos Forest Protective Association, it was just an incredible effort to hold that fire. It never grew 1 acre after the first 24 hours. Oregon Department of Forestry took over the fire from CFPA with reinforcements, and I'm not trying to take credit, but in building the relationships with these people in Salem, around the state, and of course here during the Chetco Bar fire last year, they have a deep concern and commitment to this county, and I'm very grateful to that. So I'll try and give you a copy of the letter I sent Oregon Department of Forestry Director Peter Doherty. Coos Curry Douglas Board on Economic Development. I'm also helping to put together the Consumption Tax Advisory Committee, and there's some good interest there and some good input. I don't know, I don't have much to report beyond that. Lots of board activity on the Association of Oregon Counties. Working on the invasive species that, my gosh, it's a major issue for Oregon with the pampas grass and certainly the gorse, certainly the Himalaya blackberries, the Scotch broom. I'm going to do my best to inform the citizens on that and learn all I can and pass that on. I don't know which is worse right now. The gorse is even down in Brookings, which is surprising people. Working on the Curry Housing Coalition, I see some really terrific progress there. I have a letter here to U.S. Senator Barrasso from Wyoming on the Endangered Species Act. The marbled murrelet is, they say that it has a 50-mile each way to get to its nest from the ocean. It lives 80% of its time in the ocean, and if that gets into private timber, or if that gets an uplifting from the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, that could be really difficult for our county. If a certain amount of that timber could be shut down to routine harvest. Been working very hard on the late successional reserve forest that burned up in the Chetco Bar fire, on getting a supplemental analysis with the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest people, and I still think there's a chance there. Those are larger trees, less ground fuel, not as much in the Harbor Brookings watershed, and there's some very valuable trees that still have a year of life left. Maybe one of the biggest issues we have is sod, and I often reference this map here. With David Brock-Smith, I've been going around not just Curry County, but Coos County, Douglas, trying to get additional funding from some of the timber companies, from the Indian, Native American tribes, between the state and federal government, and it's a big, this is a huge thing that both Senator Wyden and David Brock-Smith have accomplished, in getting $2.3 million combined between the state and federal. And what they're looking at are the other stakeholders in this region willing to put up, even if a small amount, money for the treatment of this pathogen. And so I've spent quite a bit of time on this, and even if, as I said, it's a small amount, it is really critical to show the state and federal people that, you know, even if Curry County at some point can only do 5,000, it shows a good faith effort, and that's I'm hopeful on that. And we have the Forest Industry Council that's looking at it, and it's going to be a process, but we're hoping to get at least 2.3 combined again between the state and federal to treat this and keep it quarantined in Curry County for next year as well, and maybe even a greater amount. Working with both the Coquille and Celeste tribes on a greater role in our national forest and public lands policies, and I've been to just meeting a lot of different people there. Radio interviews, and I hope I don't have to be on radio anytime soon with the fires we're dealing with now, but just trying to inform the public where we are. It's awful early. Yes, we still have 2 months to go on the fire season, maybe a little bit less. So I think that's all I have, Madam Chair. There's
Okay.
plenty more, but that's good enough for now, and I do have
Thank you.
letters available.
I just have a little update on the Waste Committee. Cart recycling has been successful in Brookings with a few contamination issues. CTR will be educating individuals that are having problems with this issue by issuing citations. If individuals receive 3 citations, their recycling cart could be pulled and they would still have to pay for the service. There will be a household hazardous waste event. That means you can take your hazardous waste from your homes on 8/25 from 9 to 1 p.m. at the CTR in Brookings. And in 2019, it's going to take place in Gold Beach. In 2020, it will again take place in Brookings. They're alternating, and then 2021 in Port Orford. Then they also said that the contamination level in Curry County is about 1.5%, which is much lower than the other counties. And they're going to be looking at getting the recycling bins and so forth in Gold Beach and Port Orford, and then moving out to the, not unincorporated, but the, what do they call that when the city takes over some land, but they're...
Urban growth boundary?
Urban growth boundary.
UGB?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so also CTR is buying a big grinder / shredder so that they won't have to haul the yard waste to another facility to be taken care of, because they're no longer going to be burning the waste. So just a little report. I'll give one to each of you and you can have fun reading it. Short and sweet. Any other comments? I guess not. So we're going into executive session. So all of you who are not department heads, you can be excused. And the executive session is under 192.610 2D to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. Okay, sounds good. We'll have a recess. 5 minutes. Meet back at 2:46.
KJ, do we get a different tape or anything